Welcome back to my applique series. This is the final installment, and I'm going to be showing you the stitching on a regular applique, and then I'm going to be showing you stitching on points and inside corners. And I already showed you how to stitch on some stems in an earlier video, so now here we go with, this is the flower center. I've already got it a little bit of glue holding it on to the flower. And when you start to applique, you want to start by turning under your seam allowance with the tip of the needle. That's why it's called needle turn. So you can see I turned it under. And you want to start on a fairly straight area. Obviously, if you're doing a circle, everything is curved, but if you're doing something like this oval or a star or something like that, you want to start on as straight of a piece as possible. So we come up from behind, just like with the stems, and I'm using a white thread, so hopefully it'll show up better for you. Then, as you go along, you're going to use the needle to turn under the next area of your applique, and this is where the clipping of the seam allowance comes in. So here you go. I'm going to go and I'm going to do my next stitch. I'm going down right next to the stitch that I came up inside the applique, right next to it, but outside the applique, and then I'll come up again, and my needle is just nipping the edge of the seam allowance on the applique piece, and I pull it. And since it's white thread that I'm using, you can see the little tiny dot of the stitch there. But if I was using a neutral thread that was more a little bit more darker, or a purple thread, then you wouldn't see that stitch. But that's kind of what you're going for, is a nice tiny little stitch. So then we'll just continue to move on. And as you go along, you can kind of see I'm getting to a more curvier part. And you can see I have more clips in my seam allowance as I'm getting to the curvier part. And now if you are going along and appliquing and you notice that you missed clipping something, or that you don't think your clip was you had enough clips, you can go ahead and do another clip, and you can see how that helps shape the oval as I'm going around. I'm shaping the oval of the center of this flower. There's the next one, and see, I think on this one, I think I want another clip, so it helps me to shape more of an oval shape. So you can see that's how you do that as you go along. So that's doing a regular applique piece. So now I'm going to show you points and inside corners. So I've got this one already started. I'm using white thread again to kind of give you an idea. So let's get up here, and as you turn it under, you notice I have clipped at the point, right at the point of the star. So there's your point of your star, and I have a clip right there. So as I turn that around, you can see that the fabric goes kind of behind the point. So when we get up to that point, and I'm gonna just kind of stitch a little messily just so that I can get up there fast. So when I get to the point, I want to put a stitch right at the top, right on that point. So I come up there, so I'm right at that point. Now, you flip your star over, and you take your needle, and you basically, first you work with the one piece of the fabric from the other side that was sticking out, and then you just gently with your needle, you shape the point of your star. And as you can see, I've shaped the point. I'm keep my thumbnail on there just to keep it all in place. And then what I do is I take another stitch right at that point, almost right next to where I came up the first time, to kind of keep things anchored. And so as you can see, I have a point. So now I can go down the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and swish this under, and I'm going to keep going down the other side. Now if you ever have little frays of fabric that come out from underneath where you're stitching, you can easily clip them off. If you have some little frays of fabric that stick up from a point, you can clip it off, and then you can use a little fray check. And I sometimes go back and I just tuck my seam allowance more. Now I'm coming up to the inside corner. So what I do here is I come to the inside corner, and once again I'm going to kind of stitch just really quick and messily just to get up to the corner. But what you're going to do, since this has kind of a raw edge that's still going to remain kind of raw because one side of your seam allowance is going to go in this direction. So I go up to the end of the seam allowance, right to the side of the inside corner, and then I'm going to flip, and I'm going to turn this under going in this direction, and then I kind of sweep my needle just underneath, just to get all the stray little pieces of thread tucked under. And then I put another stitch on the other side of that inside angle so that I can start going up the other side. So now this is a spot where you are most likely to maybe have a little stray thread that'll pop out, because right there in that little part is a raw edge that is not going to be turned under, because that's just the way it is with your seams going at an angle like that. So this would be a point where if you see a little thread popping out, you could just kind of nip it off with the scissors and then put a little dot, very, very tiny dot of fray check there. So, but make sure to check the fray check on the fabric you're using to make sure it doesn't stain. So that's stitching inside and outside points and some regular stitching. So definitely, if you have any questions, mention them in the comments, but I hope you've enjoyed this applique series, and I'll see you soon.